When I was in graduate school, there was a weekend conference titled No Easy Answers, which, only speaking about the title of the event, I thought was both brilliantly honest and also horrible PR. I mean, it's honest because so much of a faithful life wrestles with passages, thoughts, and realities in which there are no easy answers. I mean, there are some easy answers. Does God love the world? Yes. Who does God love? Everybody. But there are also a lot of questions for which there are no easy answers. Questions like, what does it mean to be a person of faith and living out that faith in the embattled political reality of America? What does it mean to be a Christian in conversations between science and ethics? Are all Christians the same? These do not have easy answers. Culturally, however, people love easy answers. I've noticed that not only do people enjoy easy answers, but they enjoy jumping to conclusions to get to what they think, hope, or want those easy answers to be. So a brief reminder that there are often no easy answers is a good reminder to all of us that often it takes a lot of work to understand complex issues and complex biblical passages that we might encounter. With this being said, let's approach today's gospel reading from the end of the 21st chapter of Matthew's Gospel. Now, we are going to get into the weeds with this one. Let me give you that warning now. To recap, Jesus tells the chief priests and the Pharisees a parable. Now, I've given you all my shtick about the difference between fables and parables before. That fables have talking animals and generally one point, whereas parables do not have talking animals and they typically bring us to many different conclusions. This parable of the wicked tenants, however, is typically read leaning more toward the allegory or fable side. There's a landowner who plants a vineyard. Not only do they plant a vineyard, but they create a whole world around it. A fence, a wine press, a watchtower, the whole 9 yards. The creation of a world I believe to be a nod to God, the true landowner, if you will. Then the landowner leases the land to some tenants. When it's harvest time, the landowner sends slaves to collect the produce, and they are beaten and killed. Then others are sent, and they are also beaten and killed. And finally, the landowner sends his son, who is also beaten and killed. Now, Jesus then stops this parable to ask the chief priests and the Pharisees, what do you think the landowner will do with those wicked tenants upon his return? They answer Jesus saying he will put those wretches to a miserable death and lease the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the produce at the harvest time. I'm going to stop here and review what else has happened in this chapter of Matthew's Gospel. When chapter 21 began, it did so with the triumphant entry. Jesus gets a donkey, and there are people lying down their palm branches and cloaks, singing Hosanna to the Son of David, as Jesus makes his way to Jerusalem. Then Jesus flips the tables of the money changers in the temple. It's an event that is noticed and sets off a chain of events that will end with Jesus' arrest and crucifixion. Then Jesus curses a fig tree. Then the chief priests and elders ask him, by what power do you do these things? The teaching, the miracles, the cursing of the fig tree, the flipping of the tables. To which Jesus responds with his counter-question about the baptism of John the Baptist and the parable of the man with 2 sons, all of that we covered last week. It's after all of this that Jesus continues speaking to that crowd and gives us today's parable. He's still talking to the chief priests and the elders and the Pharisees. Jesus is still trying to teach, still hoping that they will get it. get what he is trying to share with them. So Jesus shares this seemingly prophetic parable of what may happen. A parable that ends with him, Jesus, asking them what the vineyard owner would do. Notice that the death of the wicked tenants come from the mouths of the elders and the chief priests and the Pharisees who are answering Jesus' question, and not from the mouth of Jesus. Jesus does not speak of the death of the tenants. It's the assumed ending from the elders and the Pharisees. Now, sadly, this passage has been used to justify a lot of anti-Semitism throughout the years, attacking those that some Christians identify as the wicked tenants who murdered Jesus. But this is a shameful and incorrect use of this passage, these words, and this parable. What I see when I read this passage is that Jesus continues to speak and tries to show the way to literally the very individuals who are thinking about and planning on arresting him. Jesus is not speaking words of condemnation. He's acting in hope, trying to invite his audience into right relationship and show them the error of their path, the path that they seem to be on. At the end of this parable, Jesus quotes from Psalm 118, verses 22 and 23. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. This is a passage that is about the importance of the Jewish community, that the Jewish people, which had been despised and rejected through time as a people hated by so many, are in fact the people chosen by God that we see in the covenant made with Abraham. Remember, this is why Matthew starts off his gospel with the genealogy from Abraham to Jesus, to show the importance of the Jewish community from which the early Christian community sprang. So what is this passage about? That is not the easiest answer. I think it's about hope. The hope of Jesus talking to these specific people that they might hear and understand the good news that Jesus is bringing. I think it's about the importance of the stone that has been rejected, both of the Jewish community in the past that God made a special covenant with, a covenant that still holds true in that special and holy relationship, and for us, Jesus, who is rejected by all of the people of his day, all of those in the crowds, the Romans, the Gentiles, and the Judeans as well, who chanted "Crucify him" together on Good Friday. I believe it's about widening our understanding of those who are working in the vineyard, that others have been brought in, and by that I mean that more people are working side by side to help care for creation. I find that often people turn to the beloved words of John 3:16, looking for easy answers, looking for simple, looking for that silver bullet of Christianity, for God so loved the world, etc. Though I tend to lean a little more toward John 10:16. I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. It's not as easy as John 3:16, perhaps, to wrap our minds around or to rattle off our tongues, though it's just as true. More have been called to the vineyard than might have initially been thought. God continues to speak in many and various ways to all, calling all people at different hours and for different tasks and from different places, all to work together in the vineyard, all to care for creation, and all to be recipients of God's divine generosity. Thanks be to God. Amen.